When milling, I start by grabbing lumber from a local supplier. This here is 5/4 S2S1E maple. This makes the milling process go a whole lot smoother. I also have my bench height and my miter saw height set to the same so that I can handle larger boards like this, but I really do need to make a miter saw station. To get started, I'll measure and mark out some rough measurements that I know are longer than what I need. For this project here, I need 18-inch lengths for the CNC, so I'm cutting at 20-inch intervals here. Knowing the full length that we're cutting at isn't going to be used, these cuts don't have to be highly accurate. As long as they're close to 20 inches, they'll be alright. Knowing this 5/4 maple is pretty dense, I cut it in 2 to 3 passes just to avoid any pinching or kickback that can be caused by twists in the board. Once they are cut to rough length, I can bring them to the table saw. Here I can rip them to a slightly wider width than is ultimately needed. This allows for jointing an edge and still being left with enough material. Using the Jess M table saw stock guides really makes this process safe and easy. It has wheels on them that are angled 5 degrees towards the fence, keeping the material against the fence, giving nice downward pressure. One thing I like to do, but I often forget, is to mark up all the faces and edges of the boards. By marking the edges and the faces, it makes it a lot easier to see what has been touched by the jointer and planer knives. Next, we'll move to the jointer and we'll join a face and then an edge on every board. Doing the face first ensures that there's a flat surface to go in against the fence, creating the perfect square edge. As you can see here, each pass through the jointer, you can check the lines on the bottom to see if they're all gone or not. Oftentimes, you'll be left with little bits and pieces that you can clear up as you do more and more passes. Once a face and an edge have been run through, I like to use the mini square to check and make sure everything is all square. Once we have one face and one edge jointed, we can then move to the planer to square the opposite face. Once all the pencil marks are gone, we are left with 2 flat faces and 1 squared edge. Once we're done at the planer, we can move back to the table saw. Here we can get our final width and square up the one last side. It's easy to tell which side needs to be cut from our earlier markings. The squared edge from the jointer and the planer goes up against the fence, and then we are able to rip off the rough edge, leaving a nice, clean, squared edge. Once all the boards are ripped to the final width, we can then do a dry fit. The dry fit helps to see what the boards will look like once they're all glued up, make sure the colors are all good, and make sure you have no gaps. Once you have a good setup, you can then go ahead and mark all your boards so that when you move them to your clamps, you have the correct order. Once we're satisfied with the dry glue up, then we can move to the clamps. I like to put some tape down on the bars of the clamps to prevent any glue from getting on the clamps. Then you just need a thin bead of glue, spread it out, and then clamp it all together.